Ever feel like someone's words just hit you right in the gut, like actually physically hurt?
Oh, yeah.
Today we're unpacking why those verbal attacks can feel so real.
Hmm.
And more importantly,
Right.
give you some seriously effective strategies to stay grounded
Hmm.
when those conversational punches start flying.
Okay.
Buckle up, because we're diving deep into the neuroscience of staying calm under pressure.
I love it.
So it really kind of kicks off with how
Mm.
our brains react to verbal conflict.
Yeah. It's really amazing. Research has shown that the amygdala, our brain's threat detector,
Hmm.
often can't differentiate between like a verbal jab and an actual physical threat.
So it's like our brain is yelling danger,
Yeah,
even if we're just having a really heated debate.
precisely. Yeah, it triggers what's called an amygdala hijack,
Right.
flooding the body with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol.
Right.
And what's really fascinating is that social pain, like that caused by harsh words, activates the same brain regions as physical pain. This is partly why those verbal attacks can feel so visceral,
Right.
so real.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
I can totally see that now.
Yeah.
It explains why, a harsh comment can sting for days.
Yeah.
So how do we short circuit this whole amygdala hijack situation?
Right.
What can we actually DO when we feel those buttons getting pushed?
Well, that's where things get exciting.
Okay.
One powerful technique is called RAIN, developed by psychologist Tara Brach.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What does RAIN stand for?
RAIN is an acronym for Recognize, Allow, Investigate, and Nurture.
Okay.
It's a mindfulness practice that helps you navigate difficult emotions with more awareness and less reactivity.
I see. So we're not trying to just ignore those uncomfortable feelings. We're
Yeah.
actually leaning into them.
Exactly. The recognize step is all about becoming aware of what's happening in your body and mind.
Okay.
You might notice your heart racing, your palms sweating, or a wave of anger or sadness washing over you.
Okay. That makes sense. But the allow part is interesting to me. Doesn't that just give the negative emotions more power?
It might seem counterintuitive, but allowing those feelings to exist without resistance is crucial.
I see.
When we fight our emotions, we actually amplify them.
Oh, okay.
Allowing doesn't mean agreeing with or liking the emotion.
Right.
It simply means acknowledging its presence.
So it's like saying, okay, anger, I see you there.
Yeah,
I'm not going to pretend you don't exist,
right.
but I'm not going to let you control me either.
Exactly. And by allowing the emotion to be there,
Right.
we create space for the next step. Investigate.
Okay.
This is where we get curious about the emotion. We ask questions like, what triggered this feeling? What thoughts are running through my mind right now? Where do I feel this in my body?
Okay.
This investigation helps us understand the root of the emotion and begin to detach from it.
I like that. It's like we're becoming detectives of our own emotions.
Yeah.
So what's the nurture part all about?
Nurture is all about bringing self-compassion to the experience.
Okay.
You might offer yourself words of comfort like, this is a difficult moment, but I can handle it.
Right.
Or you might engage in a soothing activity,
Right.
like taking a few deep breaths, listening to calming music, or spending time in nature.
So we're not just analyzing the emotion, we're actively taking care of ourselves in the process. That's really beautiful. And I imagine this whole process helps to shift us out of that fight or flight mode and into a more rational state of mind.
Precisely.
Yeah.
By engaging in RAIN, we're activating the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for reasoning, planning, and impulse control. We're literally shifting our brain activity from that reactive amygdala to the more mindful and responsive prefrontal cortex. And that's a game changer when it comes to staying calm under verbal pressure.
That's incredible. It's like we're rewiring our brains to respond with more composure and less reactivity. So RAIN is all about taking a mindful pause, allowing the emotions to be there, investigating them with curiosity, and nurturing ourselves with self-compassion. I love it. Are there other strategies that can help us stay grounded in the heat of the moment?
Absolutely. There's a technique called the Silent Reframe that can be incredibly effective in diffusing the power of verbal attacks.
Silent reframe. Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Imagine someone's just hurled a nasty insult at you. Instead of getting hooked by their negativity, you silently reframe their words in a more neutral or even positive light. It's about choosing a different lens through which to view the situation.
That's interesting. So instead of taking it personally, we're trying to see things from a different perspective.
Exactly. For example, let's say someone criticizes your work, saying it's sloppy and unprofessional. Instead of internalizing that negativity, you might silently reframe it as, they have high standards and are passionate about quality, or maybe They're having a stressful day and are projecting their frustration onto me.
So we're basically choosing to see the good intentions behind their words, even if their delivery is less than ideal.
Yeah.
Isn't there a danger, though, of letting people off the hook for bad behavior?
Yeah.
I mean, some criticism is valid, right?
It's a great point.
Yeah.
It's important to distinguish between constructive feedback and personal attacks. The silent reframe is not about excusing bad behavior or ignoring valid criticism. It's about choosing a response that helps you stay calm and in control, rather than getting swept up in their negativity.
I see. So it's not about denying reality. It's about choosing a more empowering interpretation of the situation. And I imagine that this shift in perspective can help to de-escalate the conflict and prevent it from spiraling out of control.
Precisely. By reframing the situation, you're essentially taking away their power to hurt you with their words. And you're creating space for a more constructive and productive conversation.
I love that. It's like we're taking back control of the narrative.
Yeah.
So we've got RAIN for mindful awareness and the silent reframe for shifting our perspective. What other techniques can we add to our arsenal for staying calm under verbal fire?
There's a technique called three-point awareness that can be incredibly grounding in those heated moments. It's all about tapping into your senses to anchor yourself in the present moment.
Okay, that sounds intriguing. Walk me through this one.
It's incredibly simple yet so powerful. First, bring your attention to your breath. Notice the rise and fall of your chest as you inhale and exhale. This alone can have a calming effect on both your mind and body.
So we're starting by anchoring ourselves to our breath. What's the next step?
Next, bring your attention to a physical sensation. It could be the feeling of your feet on the ground, the weight of your body in the chair, or the texture of your clothing against your skin. By focusing on a tangible sensation, you're grounding yourself in the present moment and interrupting that cascade of stressful thoughts.
I can see how that would be helpful. Shifting our focus from those mental whirlwinds to something concrete. What's the third point of awareness?
The third point is your surroundings.
Okay.
Choose an object in your environment, any object, and focus on it for a few moments. Notice its shape, its color, its texture. It could be a plant, a painting, a book on the shelf, anything that draws your attention.
So we're essentially anchoring ourselves to our breath, our body, and our environment. And how does this help us stay calm when someone's words are triggering us?
This technique taps into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for calming your body down and counteracting that fight or flight response. By focusing on these three sensory points, you're sending a signal to your nervous system to relax, to slow down, and to shift out of that state of hyperarousal.
It's like hitting the chill out button in our nervous system.
Yeah.
I love how simple yet effective this technique is. And I imagine it can be used in all sorts of situations, not just verbal confrontations.
Absolutely. It's a great tool for managing stress and anxiety in any situation, and the more you practice it, the more easily you'll be able to access that sense of calm and groundedness, even in the face of challenging circumstances.
This is fantastic. We're building quite a toolkit for staying cool under pressure. RAIN, the silent reframe, three-point awareness. Yeah. But what about those times when we need a moment to gather our thoughts before responding?
That's a crucial point. Sometimes the best response is a strategic pause, and that's where power pausing comes in.
Power pausing. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
I have a feeling this one is going to be key for me personally.
It's a technique championed by Dr. George Thompson, the author of Verbal Judo. The idea is simple. Before you react, take a deliberate pause. This could be a few seconds, a deep breath, or even just a silent, okay, I need a moment, to yourself.
You know, I think a lot of us, myself included, could benefit from hitting that pause button more often. It's so easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment and say something we regret later. But taking that deliberate pause, even if it's just a few seconds, can make a world of difference, right?
Absolutely. That pause gives you a chance to collect your thoughts, regulate your emotions, and choose a response that's aligned with your values and intentions. It allows you to move from reacting to responding.
I love that distinction, reacting versus responding. It's about taking back control of the conversation and choosing a path that leads to a more constructive outcome.
Precisely. And that pause can be incredibly empowering. It sends a message that you're not going to be rushed or pressured into a reaction. You're taking your time to choose a response that's thoughtful and deliberate.
So power pausing is all about taking a breath, gathering our thoughts, and choosing a response that's aligned with our best selves. I'm definitely adding that one to my toolkit. Are there any other strategies we can use to create that space between stimulus and response?
Well, there's a fascinating technique called self-distancing language that can help you gain a more objective perspective on challenging situations.
Self-distancing language. Okay, now you've really piqued my curiosity. Tell me more.
This technique, which comes from the research of Dr. Ethan Kross, involves talking to yourself in the third person. It might sound a bit strange, but it's incredibly effective in creating psychological distance from those intense emotions.
So instead of saying, I'm so angry,
Yeah.
we'd say something like, your name is feeling angry right now. I
Right.
could see how that would feel different. But why does this work?
When we use our own name, we're essentially stepping outside of ourselves and observing the situation from a more detached perspective. It's as if we're offering ourselves advice and support, just as we might to a friend. This shift in language creates a sense of psychological distance, which can help to calm down that emotional reactivity.
So it's like we're becoming our own best friend, offering ourselves that calm and supportive voice we need in those difficult moments.
Yeah.
I like that. And does this actually change how we feel, or is it just a mental trick?
Research suggests that it's more than just a trick. Self-distancing language actually helps to regulate our emotions. By creating that psychological distance, we're less likely to get swept up in the intensity of the emotion, and we're better able to think clearly and rationally.
That's fascinating. It's like we're tapping into a different part of our brain, one that's less reactive and more balanced.
Mm.
So self-distancing language is all about talking to ourselves with kindness and compassion, using our own name to create that sense of distance and objectivity. I'm definitely going to experiment with that one. What else can we do to tame those emotional storms?
There's a simple yet powerful technique called label the feeling that can help to reduce the intensity of difficult emotions.
Label the feeling. That sounds straightforward. Tell me more.
It's as simple as it sounds.
Eh,
When you're feeling overwhelmed by an emotion, simply name it. I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling hurt. Dr. Dan Siegel, a renowned expert in interpersonal neurobiology, calls this name it to tame it.
I've heard that phrase before, but I've always wondered why something so simple could be so effective. What's the science behind it?
By putting a label on the emotion, we're engaging the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in language, reasoning, and emotional regulation. It's as if we're sending a signal to our brain saying, we're aware of this feeling, we're not going to let it run the show.
So it's like we're taking control of the situation by simply acknowledging what we're feeling.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And does this actually reduce the intensity of the emotion? I mean, it seems almost too simple to be true.
It might seem counterintuitive, but research shows that labeling our emotions can actually decrease activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for those fight or flight responses.
Wow, that's incredible. So by simply naming the feeling, we're calming down the emotional storm brewing inside us.
Right.
I love how these techniques are all about taking back our power and choosing a more skillful response. So we've got RAIN, the silent reframe, three-point awareness, power pausing, self-distancing language, and label the feeling. That's quite a toolkit. But in real life, how do we actually put all of this into practice? Things can happen so fast in a heated conversation, right? That's true. The key is to experiment and find what works best for you. And sometimes that means combining different techniques. For example, you might start with RAIN to ground yourself and process the emotion. Then you could use the silent reframe to shift your perspective on the situation. And if you need a moment to gather your thoughts, throw in a power pause.
It's like creating our own personalized verbal judo routine. We can mix and match techniques depending on the situation and our own personal style. I love that.
Exactly. It's about finding what resonates with you and developing a repertoire of responses that empower you to stay calm, centered, and in control, even when things get heated.
This is so empowering. Knowing that we have these tools at our disposal can really change the way we approach those challenging conversations.
Absolutely. And remember, it's a process. The more you practice these techniques, the more skilled you'll become at navigating those tricky verbal waters with grace and ease.
So it's not about becoming immune to conflict or criticism. It's about learning to dance with it skillfully, knowing that we have the power to choose our steps.
Beautifully said. It's about transforming those confrontations into opportunities for growth and connection rather than letting them derail us.
I love that reframing, turning those potentially explosive moments into something positive. I'm eager to dive into that idea further.
I'm happy to explore that with you.
Great. But first, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more insights on how to turn those verbal battles into opportunities for growth. All right, we're back. Ready to dive even deeper into this idea of turning confrontations into opportunities for growth.
Yes.
It sounds kind of like paradoxical. How can something that feels so negative
Right.
be a catalyst for positive change?
It's a fascinating concept, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it all starts with, like, shifting our perspective.
Okay.
Instead of viewing verbal attacks as personal affronts,
Mm-hmm.
what if we saw them as glimpses into the other person's inner world?
So you're suggesting we try to understand where they're coming from, even if their behavior seems completely unjustified?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that people's words and actions often stem from their own pain, insecurities, or unmet needs. This doesn't excuse their behavior, of course, but it can help us respond with more compassion and less reactivity.
So instead of getting defensive or, like, firing back,
Right.
we're trying to see the human being behind the hurtful words.
Precisely. It's like remembering that everyone is fighting their own battles,
Yeah.
and sometimes those battles spill over into our interactions with others.
That's such a powerful reminder. It's
Yeah.
so easy to get caught up in the me versus them mentality,
Yeah.
especially when we're feeling attacked. But
Yeah.
taking a step back and recognizing the other person's humanity
Yeah.
can really change the whole dynamic of the interaction.
It can. And sometimes simply acknowledging the other person's feelings can be incredibly disarming. You might say something like, I hear that you're feeling frustrated, or it sounds like the situation is really stressful for you.
So by validating their emotions, we're creating a sense of empathy and understanding, even if we don't agree with their words or actions.
Mhm.
It's like we're saying, I see you, I hear you, and I respect your feelings,
Yeah.
even if I don't condone your behavior.
Exactly. And that validation can often be enough to de-escalate the situation and
Right.
prevent it from spiraling into a full-blown argument.
That makes total sense.
Mm.
But what about those times when the other person is being intentionally hurtful or abusive?
Mm.
Do we still try to find compassion in those situations?
That's a great question. And the answer is, it depends. Sometimes the most compassionate and self-loving thing we can do is to disengage from the conversation. We don't have to tolerate verbal abuse no matter who it's coming from.
Right. We have a right to protect our own emotional well-being.
Yeah,
So knowing when to walk away is an important part of this whole resilience equation.
it is.
Yeah.
And it's a skill that takes practice. Sometimes our instinct is to fight back, to defend ourselves, to prove them wrong. But sometimes the most powerful response is to simply say, I'm not going to engage in this conversation anymore, and walk away.
So we're not just mastering our reactions in the moment.
Right.
We're also learning to set boundaries
Yes,
and protect ourselves from toxic interactions.
Oh.
That's a valuable lesson in itself.
it is.
Yeah.
And even after we've disengaged from a difficult conversation, there's still an opportunity for growth. We can use that experience as a chance to reflect on our own reactions and learn from what happened.
You're talking about journaling, right?
Yes.
I've heard that can be a powerful tool for processing difficult emotions and experiences.
It can be. After a heated conversation, take some time to write about what happened. Ask yourself, what triggered me in this situation? What were my initial thoughts and feelings? How did I respond? What could I have done differently?
So it's not just about venting our frustrations on paper.
No.
It's about using that writing process
Exactly.
to gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and our reactions.
By examining our own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, we can start to identify patterns and triggers that we might not be aware of.
For example, we might notice that we tend to get defensive when people criticize our work,
Right.
or that we shut down emotionally when we feel overwhelmed.
Precisely. And once we're aware of these patterns, we can start to develop more skillful responses. Maybe we need to work on setting boundaries, communicating more assertively, or practicing more self-compassion.
So each challenging encounter becomes an opportunity to learn, evolve, and become more resilient.
Exactly. It's like turning those negative experiences into fuel for personal growth.
I love that metaphor.
Yeah.
It's like we're alchemists, transforming those leaden confrontations into golden opportunities for self-discovery.
And remember, it's all about progress, not perfection. We're not going to magically become immune to verbal attacks overnight. It's a journey, and there will be bumps along the way.
Right? It's like learning any new skill.
Yeah.
It takes time, practice, and patience.
Yeah.
But the more we work on these techniques, the better we'll get at staying calm, setting boundaries, and turning those confrontations into opportunities for growth.
And the rewards are so worth it. Imagine feeling confident and composed, even in the face of verbal pressure. Imagine being able to navigate challenging conversations with grace and ease. Imagine turning those difficult encounters into opportunities to learn, grow, and become a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. That's the power of mastering these techniques.
That's an inspiring vision. I'm feeling motivated to keep practicing and refining my own toolkit for staying calm under pressure. And I think one of the most empowering things about all of this
Yeah.
is that it gives us a sense of agency.
Yes.
We're not just passive recipients of other people's words.
Right.
We have the power to choose how we respond, how
Exactly.
we interpret those words, and how we let them affect us.
Precisely. It's about reclaiming our power and recognizing that we have more control over our emotions and reactions than we often realize. And the beautiful thing is, as we become more skilled at managing verbal pressure, we also become more resilient in other areas of our lives. It's like building a foundation of inner strength that we can draw on in any challenging situation.
So it's not just about handling those difficult conversations. It's about becoming more resilient human beings overall. I love that.
Absolutely. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. There will always be new challenges, new triggers, and new opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
The key is to keep practicing, keep learning, and keep expanding our toolkit for navigating the ups and downs of life with grace and resilience.
This whole conversation has been like a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new understanding of
Right.
not just how to handle those tough conversations,
Mhm.
but how to use those experiences to grow.
It's incredibly empowering, isn't it?
It is.
To realize that we're not simply at the mercy of other people's words or our own knee-jerk reactions.
Right.
We have a choice.
Exactly. And it's not about becoming some kind of like Zen master
Yeah.
who never feels a twinge of anger or frustration.
Right.
It's about developing the awareness and the skills
Yeah.
to navigate those emotions with more grace and intention.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about recognizing that those challenging moments, those verbal sparring matches, are actually opportunities to practice these skills, to flex our resilience muscles, so to speak.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Flexing those resilience muscles. And I think what's so inspiring is that
Yeah.
the more we work on these techniques,
Yes.
the more they become ingrained,
Mhm.
not just in how we handle conflict, but in how we approach life in general.
Absolutely. It's like we're building a foundation of inner strength and emotional intelligence
Right.
that we can draw on in any situation,
Right.
whether it's a heated debate, a
Mhm.
stressful deadline, or even just navigating the everyday ups and downs of life.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing to think that something as simple as
Yeah.
changing the way we talk to ourselves,
Right.
taking a mindful pause,
Right.
taking a mindful pause or reframing a situation
All right.
can have such a profound impact on our overall well-being.
It really is.
Wow.
And it's a testament to the incredible plasticity of our brains.
Mm-hmm.
We have the power to change our minds.
Right.
And in doing so, we change our experience of the world.
This has been such an insightful and empowering conversation. I can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom with us today.
My pleasure.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface
Yeah.
of this fascinating topic.
The journey of self-discovery and growth is ongoing, and it's a privilege to share part of that journey with you and our listeners.
And to our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the art of staying calm under verbal pressure. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and practical tools that you can start using today to transform those challenging conversations into opportunities for growth and connection. Remember, the power to choose your response lies within you. Keep practicing, keep experimenting, and keep believing in your own incredible capacity for resilience. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep those conversations constructive, and most importantly, keep being awesome.